What I wanted to start with is tell you a little bit about the landscape of cybersecurity. Israel, even at the hard times that we have now, is still the dominant, actually, ecosystem for cybersecurity. Every one of $7 in the world is invested in Israeli cybersecurity companies. Actually, one out of every $5 spent on cybersecurity is spent on Israeli products. Some of the top cybersecurity companies around the world are born and raised in Israel, and still is, and it's still a very dominant industry. But I want to share with you a little bit about the intersection now between cybersecurity, the threat landscape that we see, and a little bit about AI before we have the panel. So a little bit to speak about how we mitigate the impact of cyber threats. A little bit to understand the landscape of cybersecurity. For most people, when they speak about cybersecurity, they understand there are bad guys out there that are actually attacking our computers or digital platforms, and they probably want to do it for greed, or they want to have impact. Actually, they want to humiliate the target, but they don't necessarily understand what's the landscape. What actually we talk about when we talk about cybersecurity. At the end of the day, when we look about cybersecurity, there are hundreds of different types of attacks. From ransomware, that someone encrypts your data and actually don't get you access to the data. So attacks like someone wiping all your data, you don't have access to it. Or someone publishing the most sensitive information you have. Someone infiltrating into your application and actually make it a corrupted application, doing something very different than it had to do. Disrupt the data, interfere your business. And we see it now as a very dominant, actually as the number one threat and risk for the business community that they're being targeted. But if years back we were thinking about cybersecurity, we're thinking primarily on financial institutions or defense. But now when more and more industries transform to be digital, cybersecurity becomes actually the problem of the hospitals being attacked. About critical infrastructure, retail shops. Even we see it here with Silverstein, companies in the real estate business started being targeted for their operations, for their finance. And we see more and more of attacks, and these attacks become gradually an increased number of cyber attacks that actually turning into a severe business crisis. So more and more incidents do not remain a technical attack. They become actually a business impact on the company. We're in the US, just an example, a few weeks back, Universal Health, one of the largest health providers in the US, is under attack. Someone encrypting their data. They can no longer provide authorization for medical treatments in the US, what we call pre-authorization, or for the Israelis in the room, Tofes 17. And there's a 1 billion damage a day because you cannot actually do medical treatment because you cannot provide the payment system. Same happens Colonial Pipeline. A year ago, someone actually encrypted their system, the payment system of the largest gas and oil distribution in the East Coast. And for days, you do not have actually distribution of gas and oils because they're encrypted. So it's becoming more and more of a business problem. But why so many incidents, cyber incidents and attacks become a crisis, a business crisis? First, because we see it's a very chaotic crisis to manage. It's not a regular crisis. You have now your system under attack, and you need to bring IT people, forensic investigation, intelligence, quite often negotiator to negotiate with the attackers, lawyers, how to address the regulation, PR specialists, business continuity. All of them need to operate in concert during an attack, and it's not a task easy to do if you're not planned and ready to do that. And another thing, most companies, and I think Eyal Waldman spoke about it earlier, most companies do not prepare for a catastrophe or for something to fail. So they do not even ask themselves how I would investigate it, how I would respond. Can I continue business during a cyber attack? So they don't come ready. And last, we do not utilize data. That will be surprising to you. As much as the cyber attacks are dominant and more cyber companies are actually being established every year, we hardly use the data to try to understand whether with some artificial intelligence or some way to analyze the data, we can learn better how we can predict an incident and how at the time of an incident, we can better respond. And the problem is that most businesses say it's a technical problem, so let's go to the CISO, this security guy, he will handle it. But honestly, it's not a security problem, it's a business problem. It's a very dominant business problem because if you'll be under attack, you have a business problem, business interruption, your business processes cannot operate, your reputation is under damage. And the problem, most companies, the time they think about how to respond to an attack, when they're under attack, they go and look for consultants. That's too late of a time actually to think of how you would respond. So they go to advisor who build more and more playbooks, like paper playbooks. Instead of doing the smart thing, let's go and look at the data and see how we can actually, with better data analysis, understand how we can respond better and how we can build our processes better. So what we've realized is there's a need, and it's just a growing need. And as we develop more and more cybersecurity companies, we don't actually have the solution yet. First, how we can orchestrate managing a crisis. That's something similar to what Israel had to do after October 7. How as a country under crisis you orchestrate that everybody will come together, not in silos, but working in concert to address the crisis. Second, how we can prepare effectively. Is there a way to effectively prepare for the crisis? Most companies in routine do not think of a crisis and do not prepare for the crisis. They never simulate a crisis. They never check how mature the response would be. They don't invest. It sounds like an investment. Would I really put now my capital in preparing for a crisis, which might happen, might not happen? I don't exactly know how it would unfold, but actually preparation is key. And we start understanding that with better utilization of technology, we can understand what the threat would be and better prepare and simulate for that. And last thing, we understand that we have a lot of data, but we need to start utilizing this data for optimal response. And that's shocking. So many companies out there are being extorted by, most of the time, organized crime. So many companies out there having their source code stolen. So many companies have their data leaked, but they rarely learn from each other what we can learn about an optimal way to respond, what the data tells us about a better security. So the journey that actually Israeli cybersecurity economy is trying to handle now, whether we can, instead of waiting for the incident to happen, prepare ahead of time. Can we actually, as an industry, take data analytics and artificial intelligence to learn from the data better, whether we can better prepare, better predict, and better respond? Because at the end of the day, cybersecurity is a dominant threat, but as a society, we can actually prepare better and mitigate the risk. So that's the challenge also. I wouldn't speak now about my own company, but that's a challenge regulation is addressing now. It's a challenge about insurance companies asking that. And I'll talk later about a little bit what we've built and what actually the Israeli industry is trying to build is a better solution how one can get ready for the crisis that is relevant for them based on the data and the prediction, and better manage the crisis when it happens. So later on I will talk a little bit about Cytactic and tells how, for example, our company addressed this challenge. Thank you very much.